Alrighty, everybody. Good morning and welcome to another Aquarium Online Academy. I'm going to go ahead and step on screen. Good to see everyone. My name is Tina. I am one of the educators here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Joining me in the studio today is my good friend Karina. She's going to be working all of the wonderful magic that you see behind me on our beautiful green screen. Now today, my friends, we have a really fun program planned for you. We're going to be talking all about the wonderful world of fish. But before I get too ahead of myself, I would love to encourage you to interact with us during our program today. That means that you can feel free to text us or email us in those questions, observations, or even if you just want to say hi, we would love to hear from you. You can feel free to text us at 562-286-1838. And that's if you are watching us live as we are broadcasting right now on December 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you are not watching us live at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 9th, you're watching us at another point in space and time, then you are more than welcome to still share your observations and questions by emailing us at live@lbaop.org. One of my coworkers does monitor that email line, so they'll be sure to get back to your questions and observations either way. Alrighty, folks, let's get started. Before we get too ahead into talking about the topic of the day, I want us to do a quick exercise. You know how you would like to warm up your body sometimes in the morning? We're going to be warming up our brains, okay? We're going to be warming up specifically our scientist brains. We do that by making some observations. Have we heard of that word observation before? Give me a thumbs up if you have. Maybe a thumbs in the middle if you've heard of it once or twice, but you could use some more clarification. Thumbs down if that's your first time hearing the word observation, but you're ready to learn about it. Where are we at? A little bit of everywhere. That is absolutely okay because we're going to be talking about it anyway, so no worries. An observation is something that we do using our sense of sight. We use our eyeballs, and we take a look around our environment or around the room that you're in or the space that you're in, and you take notes in your brain about what it is that your eyes are seeing. Alrighty, so an example would be if I'm looking around the room that I'm in right now, I would say that there are a lot of really bright lights. Now, I know that's not something that you can see on your end of the screen, but believe me when I tell you that there are a lot of lights in this room. All right, my friends. So I would love for you to practice making observations on the screen behind me. This is actually a live webcam of one of the habitats that we have here at the aquarium. This is our tropical reef gallery. This is the largest gallery or the largest habitat that we have at the aquarium with over 350,000 gallons of water. It's a lot of water, right? Now, this exact habitat is supposed to mimic a real location off the coast of Palau, which is more of a tropical island. So you're going to be seeing a lot of different kinds of animals, maybe some different kinds of colors, a lot of diversity, which means that there are a lot of different kinds of animals in here. I'm going to go ahead and step off screen. What I would love for you to do is by using that number below, the 562-286-1838 text number, you can please feel free to share with me some of the things you're noticing. It could be a shape or a color. Maybe you're noticing how these animals are moving around. Maybe you'd like to share with me a pattern that you're seeing. Maybe you even want to ask a question about what kinds of animals are in there, what kind of food they eat. You could give me a prediction too. You could say, I think the water is warm, or I think the water is cold. Now keep in mind, we are going to be talking about fish during our program today, so keep a special eye on these fish. Do they all look the same? Do they have maybe similar characteristics? Are they the same shape, the same color? Or do they look a little bit different from each other? I'll go ahead and give you a couple more seconds to just observe. And now these are webcams that you can even look at whenever you would like, at home or on the go, using our website. If you go to the Aquarium of the Pacific, our website online, you can check out these wonderful webcams. They are linked on our website via YouTube, and you can check out this habitat along with our jelly habitat, our penguins, and a couple other fun ones as well. Oh, we have a surprise guest. One of our sea turtles is swimming around in there. Do we see that one? Excellent. All right, my friends. I'm going to get the ball rolling here. I'll go ahead and share some observations that I am noticing. First and foremost, of course, there are a lot of fish in here, right? I'm noticing that not every single fish looks the same. I'm seeing some that are really big. I'm seeing some that are smaller. But I'm also noticing that there are a lot of colors in here too. Tropical habitats are a wonderful home for corals and coral reefs, and that's exactly what kind of environment this is, a coral reef habitat. Coral reefs are known for being incredibly beautiful in color, so the animals that live there would like to be the same kind of color, and we call that camouflage, camouflaging. Now, I am noticing a couple of famous fish over here. Maybe we may have seen fish that look like this in a movie of sorts, right? I'm noticing that they all have tails, maybe some fins to help them swim around, and they're using their tails and using them like a back and forth, swimming with them like a back and forth motion, and that helps them to swim forward. I'm also noticing that a lot of their side fins, the fins on the side, they're kind of moving up and down and kind of side to side to help them turn in different directions. And of course, if you have any other observations as well that you would like to share, please feel free to do so by texting 562 286 1838. Now, let's get started and talk about what makes a fish a fish. Alrighty, so we're seeing all of these fish that are swimming within this habitat over here, right? One thing that we know about fish that you need to have on your body in order to be considered a fish, number one, you need to be able to live underwater, right? And what's the one thing that fish and a couple other animals in the ocean have on their bodies in order to help them breathe and live underwater? What do you think? I'll give you a little hint. There's something on the sides of their head that they use to help them breathe. Starts with the letter G. And if you said gills, you are absolutely correct. I'm going to go ahead and steal a little model of a fish really quick, made by one of my coworkers. This is my little fishy friend, and they're going to help us figure out what else on your body you need to have in order to be considered a fish. So we talked about their gills. We'll take a look at the inside of this fish in a second. What else are we noticing on this fish's body over here? What's in my hand here? Very good. That tail that we just talked about. I'm noticing that they have a tail and that they have also fins on the side of their body to help them swim. That is something else, another characteristic that you need to have in order to be considered a fish. So we have gills and we have fins, okay? Now there are some animals that live in the ocean that might not have fins like this, and that means that they just aren't considered a fish. You can live in the ocean and not be considered a fish, and we'll talk about that a little bit more a little later. How about, we'll go to this end of my fish over here. Do we hear that? A little ASMR channel for you real quick. So this right here is supposed to represent the scales that are all over the bodies of fish. Now scales kind of act like a suit of armor for these animals. It helps protect their bodies, their relatively softer bodies, from getting any kind of cuts or scrapes or abrasions and different things like that. So you need to have scales in order to be considered a fish. You need to have fins in order to be considered a fish, and you need to have gills. There is one more thing. We're going to find that thing by taking a look at the inside of this fish. I'm going to go off screen real quick, and we'll take a look at the inside. Alrighty. We see over here this red stuff. This is supposed to represent the gills. This is very similar to what gills would look like in a real fish. Now I'm noticing this white line on the top of our fish. What do we think that is? And if you'd like another hint, you can go ahead and take your hand, maybe give yourself a pat on the back and hunch over a little bit. Do you feel all those bumps on your back? Yeah? Well, that, my friends, that is your vertebrae or your spine. We as humans, we have a very strong skeletal system in our bodies to help us stand upright and walk around. Fish also have a skeletal structure, but they don't necessarily use it to stand up and walk around like we do. They use it to help them swim, to help them move, right? And to give their bodies some structure. However, there are animals in the ocean and even on land that don't have any bones either. So in order to be a fish, you need to have gills, you need to have scales, you need to have fins, you need to have bones, right? There are a couple of animals that seem to get lumped in to the fish category that aren't necessarily fish. And I'm wondering, Karina, if you're able to read my mind and help me figure out what those animals might be. Aha! Have we seen animals like this before, maybe in a zoo or aquarium, particularly in a touch pool? If not, this is a perfect way to explore virtually. So in here, I have animals that are called invertebrates. Invertebrates, beautiful. This word right over here translates to no bones. In meaning no, vertebra meaning your vertebrae, your spine, no bones. These invertebrates, while they do live underwater, they live in the ocean, they are not considered fish. So over here, I have some anemones. I also have some of these creatures over here are sea stars. And I also have some sea urchins right over here as well. Particularly looking at this animal, a lot of folks call this animal a starfish, which I completely understand. However, new science has showed us that this creature, the sea star, cannot be considered a fish because it doesn't have any of those characteristics that we just mentioned that fish are supposed to have. It does not have bones, it does not have gills, it does not have fins either, so it cannot be a fish. This is just an invertebrate called a sea star. Same goes for our lovely animals, the jellies, the sea jellies. They cannot be jellyfish because they again don't have those characteristics which would make them a fish. Excellent. Now that we've got that kind of cleared out of the way, I would love to take a closer look at a couple of species of fish from this particular habitat, the coral reef. And if we have time, we'll take a look at some fun fish that live inside of the kelp forest, which is the ecosystem that we have right off of our coastlines here in Southern California and even just across kind of the West Coast in general. So, in the coral reef, we talked about how there is a lot of coral, right? A lot of different kinds of coral, a lot of different shapes and colors as well. Very vibrant kind of ecosystem. There is one animal that is one of my personal favorites that loves to eat coral. But let's talk about this one first. This is our beautiful animal called the clownfish. Now, while the clownfish don't eat coral, they do rely on another animal that is a very close cousin to coral. They rely on the anemone. Now, we see 3 clownfish, otherwise known as the anemone fish, living inside of an anemone. If you have the opportunity to touch an anemone before, you may have felt that it's a little bit sticky. That stickiness that you're feeling is the anemone trying to sting you, but since we as humans are really big compared to our anemones and we have a lot of layers of skin on our bodies, we won't really be able to feel the sting from this anemone in particular. However, fish that don't have a lot of layers of skin and they just have those scales on their body like we talked about, they are going to be able to feel the sting from these critters, and that's how the anemones eat. But do you think the clownfish are being eaten by the anemone right now? It seems like they're kind of enjoying themselves, right? Yeah, I would agree with that. Clownfish are very special. They have something called an adaptation that allows them to survive a little bit differently in their natural habitat. So adaptations are what we're going to be taking a look at today. This is a perfect spelling of the word adaptation. Again, something on an animal's body that helps them survive in their habitat. The really cool adaptation that our clownfish have is that their bodies are actually coated in a layer of mucus. Now, I know that sounds a little bit gross, but it helps these animals out a lot by keeping them protected from the sting that you might feel from this anemone. Now, these 2 animals, the anemone and the clownfish, they have a beautiful relationship called a symbiotic relationship. That means that both animals benefit from being roommates with each other or from being, quote unquote, friends with each other. The clownfish has a wonderful home inside of the anemone because no other kind of fish is able to go in the anemone because they would get stung. So it provides the clownfish with protection. And as a thank you, what the clownfish will do for the anemone is kind of clean up the inside of the anemone. Any leftover food, bits, and baubles in there, the clownfish will eat them, so they also get a good meal. And the anemone gets nice and clean. This is a beautiful creature. It has 3 distinct stripes on its body. This is another form of camouflage. Those 3 stripes are supposed to kind of look like the tentacles or these little strands that you're seeing from the anemone to help them blend in a lot more. This is another really, really good picture of a different kind of clownfish. I believe it's called like the skunk clownfish or something of that nature. They have one really big white stripe on the top of their body, on the dorsal side of their body, on their backs, and then one other white stripe right down the side of their face, kind of where that gill flap is as well. But as you can see, they are perfectly blended in to this anemone. Beautiful. Let's jump over to another fish that loves to live within the kelp forest. Let's see if we could take a look at our parrotfish. Let's see. Beautiful. I'll go ahead and step off screen. The parrotfish is known for having such bright, beautiful, vibrant colors all over their bodies. Now you can kind of see closer to the tail end of their body. It almost looks like diamond shapes all over their skin. And those are a really great example of what their scales might just look like. Now with this animal called the parrotfish, why do we think they got their name parrotfish? What kind of an animal is a parrot? Or a parakeet? What do you think? I know parrots to be a bird, my friends. And one wonderful characteristic that birds have on their bodies, or an adaptation they have on their bodies to help them survive, is a beak. Do you see a beak on this fish? Maybe not like a hooked bird beak like a penguin or like a parrot would have, but these parrotfish are known for having incredibly sharp and strong jaws and teeth. Take a look at these little tiny teeth that are inside of their mouth. They have the ability to chomp down on pieces of coral, but they don't just eat any kind of coral. Their job is to make sure that the coral reefs stay nice and healthy, and they do that by only eating the sick or the weaker kinds of coral. They eat all of that kinds of coral so they can give room for new corals to grow. Now, if it weren't for our parrotfish, we'd have some unhealthy corals in our ecosystems, which might not really benefit a lot of the other animals and fish that call it home. So, our parrotfish, after they eat the more whiter colored corals or the sicker corals, after you eat, what do us humans and other animals have to do? Gotta go to the bathroom, right? So once this animal eats that coral, they will excrete. What's this down here? Sand. Very good. They will excrete beautiful white sand. So if you've ever been to a lovely tropical beach off of the equator somewhere, very warm, very sandy, you might have just stepped in a parrotfish excrement or poop, which is a good sign of a very healthy ecosystem. Now, what's also really cool about the parrotfish in general is that when they protect themselves as they sleep, they actually kind of form like a mucus sleeping bag over their bodies in order to help keep themselves nice and safe. We're talking a lot about mucus today. I'm seeing that that's a theme with talking about a lot of our fishy friends. So in our coral reefs, we just talked about our clownfish. We also just talked about our parrotfish. There's one more little friend inside of our coral reefs that I would love to talk about, and I know I said the parrotfish over here is my favorite, but our next animal is definitely one of my top favorite of animals. Let's see what it is. Look at that. What is that? Is that even a fish? Is that even an animal? It looks more like a rock to me than anything else. But my friends, this is called the frogfish. Now, the frogfish get their name frogfish because not only do their faces kind of give me frog energy, but they have webbed what look like feet on either side of their bodies to kind of help them grasp or ground themselves in between rocks and on top of different coral pieces. This is an excellent picture of what look like webbed toes almost grabbing onto the sea floor. Take a look at the texture of their body too, and tell me if it looks similar to anything else within this picture. If you were to touch this critter right over here and then the rock on top of it, would you say that the textures would be very similar? Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So the frogfish has the ability to kind of have the same texture or the same appearance as their environment or as the rocks behind them. And this is what we call camouflage, right? We had mentioned it very briefly before when animals are the same color as their habitats, like all of those vibrant, bright, colorful fish in the coral reefs. Our frogfish do it a little bit differently, where they kind of mimic the shape and the texture of rocks specifically. Now, frogfish are also a part of the anglerfish family. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of an anglerfish? Hmm. Do we think of a fish with a really big mouth and a light bulb on top of its head? Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Now, while these creatures don't necessarily have a little light or a little light on top of their head, they do have what we call a lure. Light bulb for the anglerfish is very similar to that. It is a kind of a lure, but these critters have almost like a little feather on top of their head that they move like this. Why might that help them? How could that help them out in nature? To answer that question, I'll ask you another question. What do humans do in order to help us catch fish? What do we use? Yep, we use a fishing pole with a rod and a hook at the end. But do we just put a hook at the end? Not always. Sometimes fishermen will put bait on the ends of their hook, like different pieces of smaller kinds of food that might be enticing or interesting to these animals. But they could also put some shinier object or any other object that might look and move like an animal in order to trick the food that they're trying to catch. These creatures, the anglerfish family friends, will do the same thing. So that little lure that they have on top of their head works almost identically to how fishermen catch fish here on land. Notice the shape of their mouth. I'm wondering, can we go back to the picture that, the first picture that we saw has like a nice view of their mouth. Their mouth is kind of in a frown shape, right? Now that's not to say that they are a sad creature. While I can't tell you exactly how they're feeling on a daily basis, I like to think that they are no thoughts, just vibes. They kind of they sit there and they wait for their food, right? So this mouth being an upside down, kind of a more of a frowny face, actually helps them because their mouth being downwards this way allows them to swim upwards to grab their food that might be near the lure on top of their head. If their mouth faced downwards, they need have to move a lot more to get up to their food. But the shape of their mouth is very, very beneficial because it allows them to eat their food a lot faster and a lot easier. Alrighty, my friends, I could talk about frogfish forever. While we have some time left, I would love to switch over to another kind of habitat, the habitat that we have here in Southern California, the kelp forest. Look at all this beautiful kelp in very nutrient-rich kind of murkier waters. Now we're noticing a big difference from this habitat compared to our coral reef habitat, right? We're not seeing a lot of bright, vibrant colors here. I'm seeing more neutral tones like greens and browns, maybe a little bit blue here and there, but mostly some darker earth tones, I would say. There are two creatures in here that I would absolutely love, love, love to highlight, and these are two that we do have here at the aquarium. We are going to talk about one in particular first, one that also has a very interesting set of teeth, very similar to our parrotfish. We're going to be talking about the California sheephead. Now, if you have seen these creatures before, you might know them based off of their very distinct color pattern. We're noticing they have a darker tail, they have a more pinker salmon colored body, a darker face with a little red eye, and their chins are predominantly a whiter color. This is a color pattern that we see more specifically in our male California sheepheads. Our female California sheepheads will be kind of like an all reddish pink color, similar to the color that they have in the middle over here. They will all be that one solid color. Now, something that I'm noticing about this fish in particular that's different than the other male California sheepheads is that they are a lot smaller. When we see male California sheepheads, we'll also notice them by the huge bump that they have right on the top of their head. It almost kind of looks like they're a beluga whale as a fish. They have a really, really big melon or a really big bump on the top of their head. And Karina's going to go ahead and try to find a picture of that for us, which would be great. But what we're seeing right over here, look at that. Look at that bump. See, it's very beluga-y, very beluga-esque. This is what the fully grown adult male California sheephead look like? The picture that we just saw before of the smaller California sheephead was actually a female California sheephead transitioning into a male California sheephead. This is an incredible adaptation that these fish have, along with a couple other animals in our world's ecosystems have as well. The dominant female in the society of fish, once they notice that there is no longer a male presence or a male fish within the group or within the school, they have the ability to change sex into female to male, which is absolutely incredible, so that they can help, again, regenerate or restart their population so that they can colonize more of the area, which is amazing. Now, taking a look more so at this jaw over here, do we see that tiny little tooth? Tiny little teeths that are right over there. Our California sheephead have very, very powerful jaws. Oh, look at that. Perfect smile. Excellent. They have incredibly powerful jaws and incredibly sharp teeth at the top and the bottom of their mouths so that they can crunch into harder kinds of foods. Now, when I say harder foods, I don't just mean, clams or mussels and things like that. Well, I'm sure they would be able to eat that. I'm talking about a specific kind of invertebrate that has been wreaking havoc recently in our kelp forest. Karina, would you mind showing the lovely audience exactly what I mean? Yep, this creature right over here we talked about very briefly before, the sea urchin. Now notice what the sea urchin is doing. It is sitting on top of a blade of kelp. Their mouth is actually underneath their body, so using that and kind of using the context of what I know about urchins, I know that this animal is trying to eat this kelp. Sea urchins' favorite food is kelp. They love to eat the kelp, specifically the root system of the kelp, which can cause an issue because if they eat too much of the root systems of kelp, the kelp is going to float to the surface of the ocean or surface of the water and then go right onto shore or kind of float away, which isn't necessarily the best for our ecosystems because a lot of animals rely on the kelp forest. Not just animals like our sea otters and other kinds of fish that use it for protection and to babysit their little cubs or their little pups as they go find food, but humans rely a lot on kelp too. If you like ice cream, if you brush your teeth in the morning, if you put on makeup in the morning or at night, then you have interacted with kelp at some point in your lives. Without kelp, our air quality wouldn't also be as healthy either. 70% of the air you're breathing right now is all thanks to kelp. So we need animals like our California sheephead to keep the sea urchin population in check. California sheephead, along with sea otters, are the only two creatures that are really able to kind of crack through that harder, spikier surface of the urchin to get to the good meat that's on the inside. And that's what makes these creatures a keystone species, meaning that they are incredibly important to our ecosystem, and without them, our ecosystem really wouldn't be as balanced. Now, my friends, the last fish that I want to talk about really quick, who would I be if I didn't mention the very, very state fish of California? The state fish of California is, my friends, the Garibaldi. And the Garibaldi, while it's very, very bright and colorful, it looks as if it would blend in really well to the coral reef. It loves to live in the kelp forest, and it is that bright, vibrant color because in the animal kingdom, bright colors or kind of like neon patterns kind of represent to other animals, hey, you want to stay away from me. I'm either poisonous or I'm a really fierce protector of my territory, which not the California sheephead, which the Garibaldi is, the California state fish, I really meant to say. The Garibaldi is a wonderful protector of their homes. They are quite the feistier fish, I will say, for being so small. They're only about, I would say, yay big. And some divers, even here at the aquarium or even out in nature off of the coast of Catalina, have had a couple of interesting encounters with the Garibaldi. Garibaldi likes to think it's a little bit bigger than it really is. They're also known for having these beautiful blue eyes. I, as a person with blue eyes, identify with the Garibaldi a lot. Now, take a look at the shape of this tail as well. What shape are we seeing? A heart. Isn't that incredible? There are a couple of different kinds of fish as well that have that very similar heart-shaped tail. Now, my friends, I know that was a really quick recap on the Garibaldi, but your takeaways are that they are a very fierce protector of their habitat, and they are the state fish of California. Folks, we talked about a lot of different kinds of fish today. We talked about the clownfish, its relationship with the anemones. We talked about the parrotfish, how it eats unhealthy coral to create a safer environment. We also talked about frogfish, how they have that little lure on top of their head to help them eat their or find their food. Then we talked about our California sheephead, which is able to eat all of those urchins that might be eating away at our kelp forests. And we, of course, ended with the state fish of California, our Garibaldi. My friends, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful Aquarium Online Academy. If you do have any other questions or observations, please feel free to email us at live@lbaop.org. We hope to see you again soon for our next Aquarium Online Academies on Thursday. And in the meantime, please take care of yourself, be kind to each other, and don't forget to be kind to our environment. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.